any questions for defensive pass game coordinator and defensive backs coach Zac Etheridge.
Hey Zach, so how does it feel to be at Miami?
It's been great. We're excited, to get this thing started. And, I pinch myself now just thinking about being a defensive back coach at the University of Miami. But me and my family, we're excited to get down. The staff and everybody in the building has been welcoming. So we're excited to be here, and we're looking forward to the daily challenges that we face.
Obviously a huge position of focus going into spring practice. What's been your initial thoughts on the talent you found here, the kids, and what you expect to accomplish over the next 6 weeks, I guess, of spring?
Man, the kids have been awesome. Myself and Coach Harris, as we, take the daily approach and trying to find a way to find out, what these guys know, and what we've been able to teach you. But they've been awesome. They've been coming up. They want to be student of the game. They want to be coached. They want to be taught. And, we take pride in that, just making sure that, as we go out there, we're the most prepared unit on the team. Communication standpoint starts with that, understanding what we're doing, how people are going to attack us. But, I'm just looking forward to watching the guys compete every day, go on the field and have a chance to show what they can do. We're talented, but we got to make sure that we understand what's the structure of the defense and how teams going to attack us and how the offense trying to, create leverage or get behind us. But, we're excited about, being on the same page in communication and going out there and compete every day.
Coach, is it difficult when there's 4 new quarterback transfers and then obviously freshmen coming on campus, so there's not a lot of carryover in the unit from last year. Coming in as a new coach, is it difficult to kind of get everyone to mesh when there's so many new faces?
Nah, it's not any different. Every day after every season, you start from ground zero. We take every guy, whether it's transfer or freshman, and start from the ground up and treat them as a freshman. So for me, I've been around the block a couple of times and in a couple of, transitioning in different jobs, but they don't know me, I don't know them, but it starts with a relationship and earning their trust, right? And them trusting me that we can work on this thing together and try to get further faster in our communication and how they learn and how they do things and what's the standard of my expectations and what I'm bringing to them. So it's really easy for, to try to understand, create those muscle memories from a DB to be on the same page. But most importantly is like starting from ground zero, starting stance, as a defensive back, and that's what I usually start with when I take a job on where guys at as they continue to get better.
You touched on it a little bit, just your approach in terms of gaining that trust and doing that, and obviously just short window, at least in spring. What is your approach to try to hit the ground running in terms of learning the guys, having them get your trust, and vice versa, them trusting you, you trusting them? What's your approach in terms of doing that?
And like I told them every day, having an open heart and open mind. And my job, every day is to come in and capture the heart and mind of the kids to make sure that I develop them holistically. That's the approach. Is first thing we do is meet individual everyone, and what's their goals, what's their aspirations, where have they been, what the trials and tribulations they'll face, what's some of the things that we can talk about to get on that surface level where they feel comfortable with me, but also me being vulnerable in my experiences. The relationship is the most important thing. And, a kid they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I take that approach every day and making sure that they feel that and not just saying, hey, do this, do that. How do you see it? How do we collaborate? How do we go on those things? But that's the approach, because now, once you capture their heart and mind, they'll do anything for you. And the same thing vice versa. If they know I do anything for them, we can get there faster, and now we can be on the same page accordingly as the back end. So that's what I look forward to every day.
Coach, in terms of recruiting, what do you look for when evaluating a prospect and then recruiting them?
Well, going through the process is position flexibility. When you're looking for a defensive back, I don't recruit just a certain position. Can a guy, what's his characteristics, what's his background, do he fit? Do his scheme, what he's learned, how much is he a student of the game, do he love football? It's a lot of different factors that goes into recruiting a DB. But once we identify the guys that we want and we go through the whole staff with Coach Cristobal and Coach Heatherman, what's their vision on what they want in the secondary, as we go through and we find the best top guys that we think that can play at the University of Miami, and those are the guys we pursue. And then once we go in that and establish that relationship with everybody that touches that kid, from training to parents to coaches to friends and everybody that have a connect to that kid. That's what we try to attack, because it's, like I said earlier, it's about the relationship of the kid and how we can make sure that we get that kid to where he wants to go.
In the same vein, Mario Cristobal's reputation is of being like a dog on the recruiting trail. In your first, month or so of being down here, I've seen you've been out on the road. Just what's it like recruiting with him and working with him on the recruiting side of things, maybe compared to some other coaches you've worked with?
Well, I like to call myself a great recruiter until I saw Mario Cristobal recruit. So, but we work hard at it. Watching Coach and his vision, his plan, his process on how he go about it. I've seen a lot of different coaches, but watching him and his everyday approach on recruiting and making sure not only that we're recruiting kids away from here, but he hits us every day on like tap in and touch all players that's here too, because they're getting recruited too, you know what I mean? So we got to make sure that as we go about it is being on the same page, but watching him recruit and making sure that he holding us accountable for sure on the guys that we're recruiting. But watching him, man, it's been eye-opening in the way his approach is, but we see why he's been successful.
With Corey Heatherman, just what have the initial talk been like for you guys since you got here, and just what are your thoughts on the scheme that you're about to be working with?
Man, I tell you, Corey's obviously one of the best I've been around, in terms of the time we have spent together, but he was very thorough in the interview process, what he was looking for. And, the vision aligned and the things that we've done, the system I've been a part of, and more importantly, he's very open to new things, because we all have been around different schemes, Coach Harris comes from Florida and those different things. Like, we just trying to get in the room to collaborate, That's the thing with him. He wants a collaboration. He wants to work together. He wants to make sure that we all see it from the same lens that he sees it from. And but it's been really working with him, man. He loved great people. He got energy in the film room. The kid's he's a great teacher, phenomenal teacher from the time he walk into the building to the time he leaves on how he's seeing things, but more importantly, making sure that the coaches are getting the same information to the players. So it's been really good working with him and seeing his vision on how he's been able to get to where he's at now.
Speaking of Coach Harris, just obviously you guys have been working very closely in tandem. So did you guys know each other before you both got here? Or if you didn't, like, how's your relationship kind of been built over the last couple weeks?
The coaching world is very small, but very big. But we have worked with people who come from a similar tree that we all came from. But it's been really good, for Corey, for Coach Harris, for sure it's been like every day we come in, we meet before we meet, just to make sure we get on the same page and making sure that the DBs, because it's not a corners coach or a safety coach, we're secondary coaches to make sure that every kid can come to our office and we feel comfortable with speaking the same language so the kids don't get confused by who said this, who said that. It's been very, very welcoming and opening to having him for sure on my side, because he's relentless at it as well.
Do you know that, obviously rubber meets the road and practice starts next week, but how is that workflow, going to work with him? Is he going to be focused more on the safeties, he wants the cornerbacks? How is that going to play out?
Say that question again?
I guess, how does it, like you said it's kind of intermingling secondary coaches, but is he going to be focusing more on the safeties, he wants the cornerbacks? How exactly does that workflow, kind of play out when practices get going and everything?
Well, first it starts with the whole secondary and making sure that we see everything together. When it comes to the specifics of what we're coaching, Coach, he coaching with the safeties, I'll be working with the corners. But again, we collaborate on the field. We're not just corners coach, safety coach, we're working together. Sometimes he take the boundary corner and I take the strong safety to the field, and just making sure that we all on the same page, like I said. But working together in the secondary has been the main focus, that any kid that come into the building, they can meet with either one of us and what we're doing. That's been the biggest thing.
You mentioned communication earlier.
Yeah.
Was a huge issue here last year. And what's the key in the secondary to cultivating kids communicating well with each other on the field, knowing what they're supposed to be doing, and not having breakdowns during games?
Well, the biggest thing is the relationship off the field. The biggest thing with kids nowadays, they don't talk. They don't text. So you got to force them to communicate in the film room first. And that's where you learn, that's where you study, and then that translate to the field and the grass. But making sure that we have an obnoxious communication on the field, being loud, being alphas, and making sure that the secondary, you run the show, you make the checks, you're the quarterback of the defense. So we all have to speak the same language. We all have to hand signal. We all have to communicate. And that's why we talk about certain things as a group before we break off the individual. Okay, what are we calling this? How are we saying this? What's the hand signal? What's the communication? Because that's what it starts with the secondary. Everybody has to be on the same page from day one all the way through the finish line because things come up. And that's what I take pride in, and that's what Coach take pride in as well, and making sure that our kids understand the importance of communication more than anything.
How would you assess the talent in the DB room, given with all of the transfers and the recruits and returning guys? How would you compare the talent in the room to other rooms that you've coached in the past?
Well, you know, the biggest thing, I'm excited to see the guys compete. I haven't had a chance to see them in the practice field. You know what I mean? We've been doing a fourth quarter, watching the guys run and compete one-on-one with each other. But, you know, once you put the pads on and be able to find out, you know, what guys do on a day-to-day basis and their approach. But I think overall, you know, Coach, like I said, Coach Cristobal is a heck of a recruiter, and he's brought in a lot of great players and talent. But, you know, it's somewhere you're going to create separation on how guys learn, what they do. You know, what's the standard? The standard is the standard. No matter how talented you are, we're going to bow to the standard, or you playing to the expectations that myself and Coach Harry said and Coach Helderman said. That's the biggest thing that I think will separate guys. But more importantly, the room is talented, but somewhere along the lines that, you know, you're going to find out, you know, who's the guys that can go out there and be the best five when we run out the tunnel or go in the practice field to give us a chance to win.
Coach, you touched a little bit on your approach to coaching with understanding your athletes, their past, their goals. Is there a coach during your past that inspired you to have that approach?
Yeah, it's a lot of coaches, but I take it back to high school. You know, I went to Charleston as a high school in Troy, Alabama. Hugh Fountain was the head coach, but my defensive back coach, you know, Sylvester Atkins, was the one that poured into me and allowed me to see the game of football from a different stance, but more importantly, you know, being a father figure to me to tell me how to go about to do my things and the things to look for and all those things. So, you know, he's been one of the guys that I've spent a lot of time with, talked to all the time throughout this journey. And then as I grew older, Ted Roof became my defensive coordinator at Auburn, and he gave me my first opportunity, you know, at Penn State with Bill O'Brien, and he's continued to be a mentor to me throughout this profession. So I lean on those guys a lot, but it's many more coaches I can name that I've been a part of that, but every coach that I've played under or worked with or just as a young man that inspired me, I have took something from everybody to get to me where I'm at today. And I just try to take everything and pour it to each and every one of those kids, because that's why I'm standing before you today, because it allowed me this opportunity at Miami.
Thank you, Coach.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.